Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Pbogz once again, making another portion of my mini series. And if you haven't seen the first one yet, what I've been doing for the past few weeks and what I will be continue to do over the next few weeks is get a few hand histories from a few games that I played while grinding, and take a few very interesting hands and kind of go over them step by step with you guys. Some hands are in general just interesting. Some are informative from a fundamental point of view, and others are just very, very interesting situational spots that I think that you can take and basically use when you play your own game. So I think all these hands have something that can help you guys out, and let's jump right into these hands. So this hand is versus a player that I play once in a blue moon. He's a very good player. He has 4,000 plus games played on Revolution. He's got a profit of over $12,000 and ROI of 9.3. So a very good player, very good thinking player. And we once in a blue moon when I'm in the lobbies at night, he'll join me and we'll get a few games. So I believe this is. I'm not sure if this is the first game, second game. Not really sure, but just a few notes about him. I know he does 3-bet a lot, and one thing that I picked up on in this session was that he was slow playing a ton of very, very strong hands. And with these hands I'm going to go over, I want to do it in a sense where I'm going to show you one hand against this guy, and then another hand against the same exact guy, and they kind of go hand in hand because I want to show you guys how you can take notes and be observant and use that to make greater plus EV plays down the road with solid reads, and just kind of using their tendencies and maybe leaks against them for your overall success while at the tables. So we're going to go over the first hand here. And the first hand we got going right now is pocket fives, and obviously very early in the game, and we decided to open, which is just fine. It's a standard here. One thing I know about this guy is that he does like to float a lot of my C bets, so I did decide to make this C bet 60 just because on a board like this you're gonna get floated a ton. So I figured that making it a little bit more, I could extract some more value. So I think that's fine. He flat calls. Now the 8 here is kind of a tricky card because most people think they're fine here, and right in this position, most of the time I think this 8 is completely irrelevant. But you want to figure out what's floating you here or what he can possibly have. So on the flop, you could obviously have 2 random floats. He could have 10x and he could have 4x. And this is also a very good board to check raise on as well. So when this 8 hits on the turn, I really don't have him on much. I mean, he could very easily float with like a 9-8 or some kind of 8x hand for sure. And he could also, still continue on with, 8-6 hands as well. But I feel like checking this turn is very bad because A, if he doesn't have anything, you let him see a free card. B, you're losing value from the 4x that he could potentially have in his range. And also, if you do check this turn, a lot of players are going to take that as weakness and make a very, very hefty bet on the river. And depending on the card, it's going to be a very, very hard hero call here with fives. And I think that the situation in this instance is you want to bet this turn for sure. So I decided to bet the turn, and I think the sizing is just fine. And he flat calls, and when he flat calls here, once again my alarms in my head start going crazy, and I'm thinking, alright, well, if he had 4x, he might have already made some kind of play. I don't think he's a weak player, and I think calling down these streets with 4x is rather risky because he's got to know that I'm going to be barreling off in this spot, so it's going to be a very tough hero call for him. He would play 10x this way exactly. If he did hit an 8 on this turn, he would either flat call like he did, or he would check raise. And then also you still have some floats and also some maybe other weird hands, for example, pocket aces. But obviously, we don't know that he has that at this time. So the river comes to 10, and at first glance, it's a very good card for us because now 4x does call a river value bet. Obviously, 8x isn't in that much of his range, so we can't give him that much credit for that. And if he did potentially float us with ace x, he could make probably a decent sized hero call with that as well, and maybe even some king x, depending the player. So this situation where usually I would continuation bet, and when he checks back here, I feel like a lot of players would value bet here, and I think the right play is to value bet here. But when you play a certain amount of games and a lot of volume, you tend to get this gut wrenching instinct that just tells you not to raise. And I feel like even though I should bet this flop because I might be missing some value, and other players might think that it's a little bit too thin to value bet here, which it's close, but just because I got that really tight gut feeling in my gut, I just decided to check here, and I'm glad I did because he ended up having pocket aces and trying to set us up. So this is a hand where right off the bat I'm thinking, wow, he should have 3-bet this hand pre-flop. Definitely should have check raised this hand pre-flop. I mean, on the flop, could have, but instead he just decided to slow play it the whole way down, and that's very tricky on his part. So right off the bat, the note that he implements in my mind is that he is slow playing all of his big hands, which brings us to our next hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 hands later. Now only 6 hands later, and over the course of those 6 hands, he was starting to 3-bet me a lot. So I figured that instead of building a pot by either trying to make a play with a 4-bet, I decided to implement a limping range that I thought would be good for my first plan of attack. If he was punishing a lot of my limps, then I would obviously change that, but I think that my first plan of attack should be to see how he reacts to limps and then move on from there. So right here, we're down here, and remember, it's only a few hands later, and we have king 7. So as you know, he's been 3-betting a lot now, and I decided just to limp with king 7 because I just don't feel like playing a big pot with a hand like king 7 at this time. Definitely since he's kind of been running us over. So I decided to limp, and he just decides to check, which we like. Now the flop comes king 8 queen, and I like that flop. I'm not really afraid of this flop at all. Very dry flop. So he decides to bet 20, and when he bets 20 here, I feel like a lot of players would re-raise here, but I feel like I kind of am doing him a favor by raising here because I'm making him fold out all his bluffs. So right here we decided to call. It was a 10, and I'm not crazy about the 10 just because now there's a lot of not a lot of straight draws and some flush draws, and I'm not crazy about it. But when he checks here, I decide to bet, and not crazy about my 80 size bet. I think it shouldn't be pot. I think it should be 60. So I would have liked to change that, but at the end of the day, not that big of a deal, just because there are a lot of draws out there, and I feel like he would be calling that size bet, just because the pot was so small with a lot of jack X and some flush draws. So I bet 80, and he decides to raise to 240. And right off the bat, I'm thinking to myself, well, he just slow played a very strong hand, and now he's playing a hand very tricky and very fast because he led the flop. Then he check raised the turn. So this is a very interesting and tricky line that he's doing right here, and I mean, I just saw him slow play a huge hand, so now he's playing a hand fast, and right off the bat, I'm just thinking bluff. I'm thinking semi-bluff at best, and I'm really not worried about his range just because of those notes that we took, and that's the kind of thing where we want to make good on the notes that we see. When we see showdown hands, we want to see what happened, we want to take notes, and then make good on it later down in the game, obviously. So we flat call here. Just hoping to not see any ace-x or any 9x or any hearts. And the river comes in at the 5, and I believe, and looking at the stack sizes, and the effective stacks and the pot size, I just feel like he's going to be shoving a lot on this river. I mean, we have 723 and the pot size is 560. So, I mean, it matches up pretty decently for him to shove here. And he does. Now, we do flat call, obviously, just because I feel like it's a very easy call for us, honestly. I mean, I snap called him there. Nothing to worry about with the river card. And I just feel like with our notes in the past with him slow playing fast hands, slow playing big hands, I feel like him playing fast is contradictive. So he ends up shoving and we call and he has absolutely nothing. So one thing that we want to look at on his point of view, and this is the kind of thing I really want to stress out, and this is why I'm making this video, is because for two things. One, when you're a player and a good thinking player, and you know a few hands ago you just implemented a note in villain or opponent's head that you slow played a huge hand. Like he slow played aces, and then he imprinted that in my mind that he slow plays big hands. So the very next pot that the very next big pot you get into, you don't want to turn it into a bluff, because that's kind of what you want your opponent to think. I mean, if he had ace jack here, he would have just completely outplayed me, outclassed me and everything, because he's making me think that he's slow playing all big hands and fast playing bluffs. So if he's fast playing, big hands and slow playing big hands, it balances his range out so much that it makes him very hard to play. Now, I wouldn't mind this play if it's, a few big pots later in the game or sometime down the road, for sure, because now his balance is, his ranges are very balanced. But in a situation when you're trying to tell a story, you have to understand that your opponent is taking notes on you. A good opponent is taking notes on you. So when he sees something like you try to set him up with pocket aces, he's going to now think that you slow play all your aces and slow play all your big hands. So I'm just trying to stress the point that your next hand shouldn't be a bluff. It should be, if the next hand you play fast should be, once again, a strong hand. And then maybe after that, then you could start bluffing. So it just balances it out. I think his mistake was that he showed me a tendency of his to like to slow play and then played a hand fast. That was a bluff. So he kind of set himself up. He almost leveled himself, and I think it made it for a very easy call on our part. So basically, just wanted to get on a deeper level with you guys, and I hope you guys understand. If you don't, please write some comments and stuff like that, and I can try to help you guys understand a little bit better, or if you just want to write something down about the video, that's awesome too. But overall, just pay attention to your villain, take great notes, and just go off your reads. I mean, just, take good notes and play fundamental, and if you get a solid note like that, just, make the call, because, you know what, sometimes, and more times than not, you're going to be right. And if you're wrong, then you take more notes and you just try to figure your opponent out from there. But hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hope to be hearing from you guys soon. Thanks. Take care.